Hello everyone. There has been a lot of news lately that makes us take a deep breath. One of them is news about the tension between Israel and Iran, attacking each other. But behind all that, it is the people who are victims of the war woe do not know when it will end. They have to lose their loved ones due to human selfishness. Let's watch the news from the Breaking Point YouTube channel. There is news titled, Israel Blocking Escape, Using U.S. Citizens as Human Shield. They reported about the Israeli government forbidding its civilians from leaving the country of Israel. Do you think Israel is using its civilians as human shields? For more details, let's watch the following video.
At the same time, within Israel, there is an extraordinary development. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. There's a new report here from A New Policy, which is an American lobbying organization for U.S. policy towards the Middle East, actually advancing national interests. Here's what they say, quote, sources tell us at a meeting yesterday between U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu devolved into a shouting match over Netanyahu's objections to U.S. plans to evacuate citizens from Israel and the wider region. U.S. officials believe that the Netanyahu objection was predicated on his desire to hold U.S. citizens at risk in order to increase the likelihood of U.S. entry into Israel's conflict with Iran.
Wow, this is crazy. So apparently, there was a meeting between U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee and Netanyahu, and it got so heated that they were shouting at each other. Just imagine two prominent leaders arguing over the U.S. plan to evacuate citizens from Israel. And if the claims about Netanyahu wanting to keep U.S. citizens at risk to push the U.S. into the Israel-Iran conflict are true, my goodness. That's high geopolitics, or just plain reckless. But let's be realistic. This is coming from a specific source, so we should take it with a grain of salt. Could this be being said to push a certain narrative? It's certainly possible. Either way, this feels like a major diplomatic drama is brewing, especially since the U.S. and Israel are usually so close. What do you think? Will this shake up their relationship? Let's continue the video.
So let's sit on that for a little bit, shall we? First of all, there are 700,000 Americans, this is the current belief, within Israel, 700,000. I believe they have the largest outside American citizen population than Mexico, which tells you quite a bit. However, there is a little bit of a difference, is that many of these people are dual citizens, according to the data that we have, but it also is being used as a pretext for why the United States has such a, quote, obligation to defend Israel. Now, let's just say Mexico. All right, so if Mexico, who do they share a border with? Guatemala? So if Guatemala was bombing Mexico, would we intervene to protect Americans in Mexico? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that that logic works all that well. There's a secondary element to this, which is that currently, at least, a lot of these U.S. citizens don't seem to be allowed to leave. You know, we haven't seen yet some of the reports there, and obviously the flight situation there is pretty crazy. But almost every one of the other great powers has told their citizens to evacuate immediately. Yesterday, the Chinese Foreign Ministry issued a statement and said all Chinese citizens should leave Israel immediately. The Russian Foreign Ministry came out and said all Russian citizens should leave immediately. There's actually a huge Russian population in Israel. A lot of people don't know that. But the point is that those countries seem to have the ability to tell their citizens to leave. Right now, I believe we do have travel advisories and all of that, but the question is about their ability to do so.
All right, let's break this down, because honestly, there's a lot happening here. First off, 700,000 Americans living in Israel. That's huge. Apparently, it's the second largest population of Americans living abroad after Mexico. And, yeah, most of them are dual citizens, which is interesting. But this whole idea that it somehow creates an obligation for the U.S. to defend Israel. I don't know. Feels like there's more to it than just that. And then there's this comparison to Mexico. Like, okay, if Guatemala started bombing Mexico, would the U.S. step in to protect Americans living there? Honestly, it can doubt it. So why is Israel different? That's a big question for me. Now, here's where it gets wild. Other countries, like China and Russia, are straight up telling their people to leave Israel immediately. Meanwhile, the U.S., just travel advisories. What is stopping Americans from leaving from Israel? Oh, and by the way, fun fact, there's apparently a huge Russian population in Israel. Who knew, right? But seriously, here's what's really bugging me. Why is Israel stopping Americans from leaving? Like, why? What is the deal with that? It just doesn't add up. All right, let's continue the video.
And this pairs, and this is already confirmed, this isn't even based on a report. Put this up there on the screen from Haaretz, which is an Israeli news organization. Israel tells airlines do not let Israeli citizens leave, even once repatriation flights are able to continue. Quote, estimates suggest rescue flights for Israelis stranded abroad won't begin before Thursday, and even then, only 2 flights per hour will be allowed during daylight. And the plan does not match the scale of the crisis. So, I mean, effectively what you're seeing is that they are locking their people basically in their borders in the same way that Ukraine tried to do so in order to force everybody to fight in the draft. And they're afraid, I guess, of the number of Israelis that do have dual citizenship all around the world who could take advantage of that and say, I'm getting the hell out of here. I don't want to fight in this war. Yeah. Or, hide in a bomb shelter every other day. Raises some profound questions about human shields and locking people basically in a death trap and forcing them of their own defeat. I'm not going to deny there's probably a lot of Israelis. I would say the vast majority of Israelis probably support this war based on all the polling that we've seen.
Agreed.
Let's be honest.
Okay, so get this part is actually confirmed. No rumors or reports here. Straight up, Israel is telling airlines, don't let Israeli citizens leave. Like, even when evacuation flights resume, they're saying only 2 flights per hour during daylight. That's insane. It doesn't even match the scale of what's happening. It feels like they're trying to keep everyone inside the country. Kinda like Ukraine did with the draft forcing people to stay and fight. But here's where it gets even more messed. Think about all the Israelis with dual citizenship who could be like, yeah, no thanks, I'm out of here. And now they can't leave. But then you gotta ask, what about Americans in Israel? Are they stuck too? And this is the big question for us. Is Israel using them as human shields? Like keeping them there to pressure the US into stepping into the fight? If that's the case, that's just dark. I mean, I get that most. Israelis probably support the war, based on polling, but locking people in like this, especially dual citizens, raises some really serious questions. Back to video.
But at least some of them want to leave, and I think that the action by the Israeli government speaks volumes.
Yeah, they don't want. So first of all, to go back to U.S. citizens,
that's the biggest
being
question.
Blocked from leaving. We don't know if they were able to actually, convince Huckabee and the U.S. administration of that policy. But what they're saying here, they want to use American citizens as human shields. Like, that is what that means. And they want to use American citizens as pawns in their game to try to force an escalation and force us to come in on their side. I guarantee you, they are praying for the Iranians to hit some U.S. military base and to kill some American service members so that the war fever picks up here in the U.S. and this administration feels even more pressure and is even more likely to directly join the fight on Israel's behalf. That's how sick they are.
Well, let's talk about this, because if this is true, wow. First off, sure, not everyone in Israel wants to stay. Some probably want out. And the fact that the Israeli government is making it hard for people to leave. That says a lot. Now, back to the part about U.S. citizens being blocked from leaving. We don't know if they actually convinced Huckabee or the U.S. administration to go along with this policy. But the implication here? It's dark. They're allegedly using American citizens as human shields. Like what? That's next-level manipulation. And it doesn't stop there. They're basically playing this chess game, using Americans as pawns to escalate the situation. And get this, they're apparently hoping for Iran to hit a U.S. military base, or even kill American service members to crank up war fever in the U.S. What? That's just sick. If this is the strategy, it's not just reckless, it's downright twisted. Using lives to force America's hand in the conflict, that is a dangerous game, and it's horrifying to think this could actually be happening. So yeah, that's where things stand right now. It's messy, it's complicated, and honestly, it raises a lot of tough questions. Are they really doing this? What's the end game here? Anyway, that's just my perspective. What about you? Do you think these claims hold any truth? Should the US step in? Or is it better to stay out of it? Let me know your thoughts down below. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.